Is photography still worth it in 2024? Now, if you're a hobbyist, of course, there's no denying it. You want to go and take pictures, yeah, it's worth it. If you enjoy it, it's worth it. What we're talking about here is the business of photography still worth it in 2024? Is it still worth doing it? Is it worth continuing it? Is it worth getting into it? And this is a very complex array of things. We're going to dive in. It's going to be around the houses. Bear with me. You can probably podcast this and you just keep it running in the background. Everybody is different. Everybody. You should never take career advice from anybody else. And with that in mind, I'm going to try and give you contradicting opinions. And I know everyone watching YouTube videos wants a finite answer. I see it in the comments, but there isn't one. So let's take a look like this. Let's assume you're single. You have no children, no dependents, no parents to look after. It's just you. You love photography. You love it. It is all you think about. You wake up and you think photography. You go to sleep, you dream photography. Okay? That's where I was. Even if I only made £12,000 a year, gross, I would still do this. I would still do this pursuit. Even if it meant living as if I was almost on benefits. I don't know what it's called elsewhere in the world, but when you don't have a job and the government gives you money, that sort of life. I would still do this job because I love photography so much. Of course, I wouldn't have all of this if that was the case, but if I was a street photographer, documentary photographer, creating still lifes in my house using window light, whatever it is, if the life of an artist and the life of a creative was what really mattered to me, the money be damned. I have no one else to worry about. I can feed myself on baked beans and bread. I'm all right. I'll be fine. Don't worry about it. It's still worth it. It's still worth it. But say you're still single, but a bit more mercenary. You want some money. You want some fun in your life. You want to drive a sports car. You fancy a Mercedes. You fancy all this flashy stuff. You want a big house. Is it worth it? Well, that depends. If your main aim is to get the money and to do that thing, there's many ways to do it, and photography is certainly not the easiest one. But then how many easy ways are there to make a lot of money? Whatever it is you do, if you want to earn at that level, you have to be good at it. If you want to be making £200,000 a year, which I think in the US is about the equivalent of 350, 400 with health insurance and prices differences, you've got to be pretty on it. You know, it's not the sort of thing you go, well, I'm going to go and give that a go and see how it pans out. It's an all-in system, you know. And throughout my life, I've changed my opinion repeatedly, and I'm going through another change at the moment as to whether I am starving artist or raking in the money. Which one am I going for? And the two are very different. Starving artist, I can do what I want. I can be who I want. I can just live that life. If I want to make a lot of money, I have to do certain things. I have to compromise. You are no longer your own person. You're no longer your own boss. You have to shoot for what the commercial world wants. You have to go to the dinners. You have to go to the parties. You have to do all these extra bits and pieces, which you might not want to do. But if you do, there is still fortunes to be made in photography. But it's not easy. And you also have to be good. And most of you aren't. And that's not a slight on most of you. It's just a fact. You want to be a professional football player? Probably not going to happen. Most of you aren't any good. Same thing. It's the same thing. You know, I'm sure you can have a great kick around with your mates down the park, but you're probably not about to play in the Premier League. It's the same sort of thing. Elite photography is not just this thing that you just mosey on into and go, yes, 100 grand a day, here we go. Doesn't happen like that. It takes years and years of work. Not just that. For some people, no matter how hard they work, they can't get to that level. For other people, they can't work hard enough. You know, there's all these different elements within there. But that's assuming you're single. You can take the risk, you know. If I aim to make $500,000 a year and I don't, and I'm single and I have no dependents, no debt, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And the advice I'd give anybody who wants to become a full-time photographer, and the advice I'd give almost everybody who pays me for advice when I look through that stuff is, get rid of your overheads. When you're doing the job you love to do, you don't need all these extra things to cheer you up outside of work. You don't need designer clothes. You don't need a sports car. You don't need a house that's way too expensive for you because you're trying to kid yourself that the depressing, soul-destroying job you go to every day is worth it for the house. When you're doing what you love, you'll start to realize you really don't spend much money. My personal overheads, my personal spending is nearly nothing, really, beyond necessities. I don't buy things. I come to work and do my hobby all day. We go to London for like work things and go to cool places, and it's all work. I don't need fancy clothes. I'm a photographer. I can turn up in whatever I want. I don't need to impress anybody. My work does the impressing. Life becomes cheaper in terms of living it, not in terms of the actual life. Time becomes expensive, but life becomes cheap. When I used to work in an office, I wore a nice suit. We travelled around in nice way. It doesn't matter. Don't care. What I care about is coming to my studio every day and doing what I want to do. Today it's making YouTube videos, hopefully that someone else can get to do what I get to do, because I didn't know this life existed, and I think it's important that there's information out there. Some of it is that after this I'm going to go and work on some personal projects I'm doing at the moment. I'm then going to go to a darkroom and develop some film my shots. That's my life. That's nice. I like that. Now, between the starving artist and the making lots of money, I sit somewhere between. I make lots of money in the way that a extremely successful photographer would do, but I'm not financially motivated. So I take my foot off the gas now and again. And I have a couple of months just doing nothing, just being me, being the starving artist, and I dive back in again. It's not the sort of life that you can plan to do, but I've found myself in that position and it's great. But maybe none of this is you. Maybe you've got 3 children and a partner who stays at home to look after them, and you're the sole breadwinner, and you want to go into photography to make it your profession. Would I advise that? No, not really. Is it possible? Absolutely. Is it possible for everybody? No, it's not. And, cold hard truth here, most people suck at photography. Most people are more interested in tech and gear and learning the science of cameras and lighting and have no idea what photography actually is. And those people don't make money from it. Leaving your job when you have a mortgage, children, it is not a thing you can take lightly. You have responsibilities, and I was lucky that when I made these decisions, I didn't, and that is an absolute privilege. But if I had to make the decision today to leave a 6-figure job to go and try and be an artist, 1, I don't think it'd be enjoyable because the pressure for me to succeed would be insane, and 2, I don't think it'd be fair on anybody around me. That's my personal opinion. There's the flip side argument to this, that if you're so unhappy in your job that you're making everyone at home's life a misery, maybe you should change and do what makes you happy. Because, yeah, sure, everyone might have to take a bit of a lifestyle cut, but is that better to be happy and poor than slightly better off and miserable? And these are all things to consider. Now, the photography industry, the state of the industry in 2024 is good. At least it can't be worse than 23. 2023 is the worst year since 2008, which we all know what happened then. It was a disaster. And this year's looking up, it's picking up. We've got more work so far this year than we'd normally have. In any year, actually, which is weird, but I think that's a bit of a hangover from last year. I don't think that's a norm. A lot of people left the industry. A lot of people closed down and went bust, and that's harsh, but there's space. There's vacancies. There's things that people haven't filled in. And I think it's worth it. I think if all you think about is being a photographer, not all you think about is lens sharpness, DxO charts, and the science of light. If you think about that, go and be a technician at university. But if you think about the art, if you think about images, not I'm going to do this lighting setup, but you think I'm going to do a story about this. I want to show people what my childhood food was like. If that's you, then for sure this is the career for you. This is the path for you, and there is space in it for you. And it is absolutely not too late. It is absolutely not the wrong time. It is the time where you can get into the industry, have a good career, have a lucrative career, and just to put this into context, I have a degree and a master's. I've had good jobs in the past. I make far more money I make far more money doing YouTube than I ever have done in a day job. And I make more money doing photography than I do in YouTube, or the whole YouTube business. Like the work, the YouTube itself pays peanuts, about $1,000 a month. But like the workshops, the mentoring, the brand endorsements, all that sort of stuff makes me more money than any day job I've ever had. Photography makes me more than that. I could live on either of these salaries. Unfortunately, I did the starving artist bit for too long and I partied too hard and I didn't save in my 20s. That now means I'm having to save like a machine for my later life, which is not what I'd recommend. However, and again, sorry, back into the tangent. This is because my mindset shifted and I no longer wanted to be the starving artist and I wanted to be the rich photographer. And if it hadn't have done, I'd have been happy staying without the savings and just getting by. I have friends who literally have their rent coming out in a few days' time and like, yeah, something will turn up. And I envy them. I absolutely envy them. I look at my bank account and go, I've only got 2 years' salary left in there. What am I going to do? This is a disaster. This is not, everyone's different. I wish I didn't care, but I do. And I'm stuck between the two pillars at the moment in my career and I don't know which way I'm going. But that's a mental breakdown for another day. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.